From the moment that notification hit the screen, the entire hip-hop world froze, because this wasn't a post, it was a warning. One move from 50 Cent turned silence into chaos, and suddenly T.I. wasn't dealing with rumors anymore. He was standing in the middle of a storm he never saw coming. And the worst part, everyone knew this wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. One post, one caption, one move. From 50 Cent. And just like that, everything stopped. Because this wasn't the usual trolling people expect from him. This wasn't jokes, memes, or playful industry shade. This felt different, heavy, intentional, calculated. 50 Cent isn't new to controversy. In fact, he built a reputation on it. The jokes, the sarcasm, the online wars. He's mastered the art of turning social media into a battlefield. But this time, nobody was laughing. Because this time, it didn't feel like entertainment. It felt like a message. And the target of that message, T.I., a man who once stood as one of the most respected voices in Southern hip-hop, a self-proclaimed king of the South, and a veteran who helped shape an entire era of rap culture. But lately, that legacy has been surrounded by noise. Family tension, public controversy, and most notably, the unpredictable behavior of his son, King Harris, who has been pulling attention in all the wrong ways and putting the Harris name under constant pressure. And then it happened. The moment that pushed everything over the edge. Whatever King Harris said or did, whatever line was crossed, it was enough to ignite something in 50 Cent that had clearly been sitting there for years. Because when 50 finally responded, it wasn't soft. It wasn't indirect. It wasn't vague. It was surgical. One post that spread across the internet like wildfire. One caption that people had to read twice just to believe. One moment that instantly turned into chaos. Screenshots started flooding timelines. Pages were reposting it before it could disappear. Blogs were breaking it down sentence by sentence. And fans were scrambling to understand how things escalated this fast. Because in that moment, 50 Cent didn't just react. He struck. And the impact wasn't small. People are calling it one of the most brutal public takedowns in recent hip-hop memory. Not because it was long, not because it was complicated, but because of how precise it felt. A single post that felt like it was designed to do damage. And the question immediately became, what exactly triggered this? To understand it, you have to understand the history. Because this didn't come from nowhere. On the surface, 50 Cent and T.I. have always appeared like industry peers, sometimes in the same spaces, sometimes sharing stages, sometimes even smiling for cameras. But behind that surface-level respect, there has always been tension. Two different personalities, two different philosophies, two different kinds of power. 50 Cent is chaos-controlled, a strategist who uses pressure, timing, and public perception like weapons. Everything he does has intent behind it, even when it looks random. T.I., on the other hand, built his image on authority, leadership, and control. King of the South wasn't just a title, it was a statement. But that kind of self-crowned status always creates friction in a competitive space like hip-hop. And over time, that friction never fully disappeared. It just stayed quiet. Until now. Because what really changed everything wasn't just industry history, it was family. King Harris became the breaking point. For years, T.I. tried to manage his son's behavior in public view. Every controversy was downplayed. Every mistake was excused. Every outburst was framed as youth, growth, or misunderstanding. But the internet doesn't forget. And neither do rivals. King's behavior kept escalating, pulling more attention, more criticism, and more instability into the Harris name. And at some point, that stopped being just family issues. It became public perception. And public perception is everything in this industry. Then came the moment that allegedly crossed the line. Whatever was said, whatever was posted or claimed, it wasn't just disrespectful in a casual way. It hit deeper, personal, sensitive, the kind of moment that doesn't just offend people, it activates them. And that's where 50 Cent entered the picture. Because 50 doesn't ignore disrespect. He studies it. He stores it. And when the timing is right, he responds in a way that ensures maximum impact. This time it wasn't a slow burn. It was immediate. And it wasn't random either. Industry insiders weren't shocked that 50 responded. They were shocked by the intensity of the response. Because when he finally decided to move, it didn't look like a reaction. It looked like a conclusion, a final word, a closing statement on years of tension. And suddenly, T.I. wasn't just dealing with internet commentary anymore. He was dealing with a full-scale narrative shift. Because once 50 Cent posts something like that, it doesn't stay a post. It becomes a headline, then a debate, then a division. Fans split immediately. Some said T.I. brought it on himself. Years of controversy, mixed messaging, and family drama finally catching up. Others defended him, arguing that no father should be judged through the behavior of his child. But in the middle of all that noise, one fact stood out. 50 Cent didn't act emotionally. He acted deliberately. And that's what makes this dangerous. Because when 50 moves with intention, it usually means he believes the moment is worth it. And now the hip-hop world is stuck watching the aftermath unfold in real time. Because this isn't just about one post anymore. It's about what it represents. A shift in energy, a public challenge, and possibly the beginning of a much deeper conflict that hasn't fully revealed itself yet. And T.I. silent for now. But in hip-hop, silence is never the end. It's just the pause before the next move. From the very moment that Instagram notification popped up, everything shifted in real time. No warning, no build-up. Just one post from 50 Cent, and the entire hip-hop internet went completely silent for a split second, like everybody was waiting to understand what they were actually looking at. Because 50 Cent doesn't post like everyone else. He doesn't react like everyone else. And most importantly, he doesn't fight like everyone else. So when this post dropped, people immediately knew one thing. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was war. Not the usual celebrity back and forth, not trolling for laughs, not subliminal disses that fade in a day. This felt different, heavier, more intentional, like something had finally pushed him past the point of restraint. And at the center of it all was T.I., a hip-hop legend in his own right, king of the South, a man with years of success, influence, and industry respect. But lately, his name hasn't been attached to music the way it used to be. Instead, it's been controversy, family tension, and a growing wave of public scrutiny, especially around his son, King Harris. Because King didn't just step into the spotlight, he crashed into it. Loud energy, unfiltered interviews, emotional outbursts, and moments that kept dragging the Harris family name back into online debates they could never fully control. But nobody expected what happened next. Because one moment from King Harris crossed a line that even the internet paused for. A line involving 50 Cent's mother. And in hip-hop, there are rules that aren't written anywhere, but everybody knows them. You don't touch family. And you definitely don't touch 50 Cent's mother. Because that's not just a topic for him. That's trauma. That's history. That's the moment that shaped everything about who he became. So when that moment got mentioned, mocked, repeated, and thrown into content like it was nothing, something inside 50 Cent snapped. Not loudly, quietly, which is always the most dangerous version of him. Because 50 Cent doesn't explode first, he calculates first. And while the internet thought it was just another messy celebrity situation, behind the scenes, something much darker was forming. A response that wasn't emotional, it was strategic. Industry insiders reportedly started noticing the shift immediately. Phones started buzzing. Group chats lit up. Executives, managers, and PR teams began quietly warning each other. Because everyone understood the same thing. If 50 responds, it's not going to be small. One insider even put it bluntly, if he posts, it's over. But what made the situation even more intense was this. 50 wasn't reacting to T.I. directly at first. He was reacting to King Harris. And that changed everything. Because King wasn't a veteran, he wasn't protected by industry history or political alliances. He was young, emotional, and moving like someone who didn't fully understand what kind of attention he was pulling. And in doing so, he lit the match. At first, it looked like internet chaos. Memes, reactions, people picking sides. Some defended King, saying he was just speaking recklessly like a young artist trying to prove himself. Others called it disrespectful, dangerous, and unnecessary. But 50 Cent didn't join the noise. He studied it. And that's where the real shift happened. Because silence from 50 Cent doesn't mean calm. It means preparation. And while King continued speaking online, doubling down in live streams, chest out, talking like nothing could touch him, the energy behind the scenes was already changing. People around 50 started panicking, not because of what King said, but because they knew what 50 was about to do. One person reportedly even said, "Somebody needs to stop him before he posts." But nobody can stop 50 Cent when he's locked in. And then it happened. The post, one image, one caption, and a silence that hit harder than any diss track ever could. It wasn't a meme. It wasn't a rant. It was a document, a legal file, a screenshot of T.I.'s past plea deal, highlighted, framed, and posted with a caption that instantly turned the entire internet upside down. "Since your son want to talk reckless, let's tell the whole story." That was it. No explanation needed. Because in that second, the narrative flipped completely. The internet didn't just react, it collapsed into chaos. Screenshots flooded timelines, Twitter trended instantly, comment sections froze, group chats exploded, bloggers scrambled to verify what they were seeing. And suddenly, the conversation wasn't about King anymore. It wasn't even just about T.I. It was about a rumor that has followed him for years. One that 50 Cent never officially confirmed, never directly accused, but now had placed in front of the world with surgical precision. And that's the difference with 50 Cent. He doesn't need to say everything out loud. He just needs to show you something and let the internet destroy the rest. Because the truth is, whether the document meant everything people think it means or not, the damage wasn't in the details. It was in the implication. And implication spreads faster than facts ever will. Within minutes, every corner of hip-hop media was on fire. Celebrities reacted carefully. Some stayed silent. Others tried to redirect the conversation, but nobody could stop it. Because once 50 Cent decides the game is over, the game doesn't continue. It resets. And T.I., who was already dealing with public pressure, family tension, and industry criticism, suddenly found himself at the center of something much bigger than a personal feud. Because this wasn't just an attack anymore. It was exposure, whether literal, perceived, or debated. And in hip-hop, perception is often more powerful than proof. Meanwhile, King Harris went silent. No follow-up live stream, no response, no doubling down this time. Because the energy shifted too fast. What felt like confidence hours earlier suddenly turned into realization. Realization that some lines once crossed don't lead to arguments. They lead to consequences. And 50 Cent didn't say another word. Because he didn't need to. The post already spoke for him. And that's what made it worse. Not the caption, not the image, but the fact that he posted it and walked away. Because when 50 Cent goes silent after making noise, that's when everyone else starts talking. And by then, it's already too late. When 50 Cent's second post hit the internet, it didn't trend, it detonated. No build-up, no warning, just a single upload that instantly flipped the entire energy of hip-hop online. Within seconds, timelines froze, screens stopped scrolling, group chats went silent for half a breath and then completely exploded. Because this wasn't another petty celebrity back and forth. This felt like exposure. And at the center of it all was T.I., a veteran rapper, a self-proclaimed king of the South, a man who had spent years trying to rebuild his image, carefully positioning himself as a father figure, a mentor, someone beyond controversy. But the moment that post went live, all of that started to crack at the edges. And 50 Cent, he didn't slow down. He never does. Almost immediately, he doubled down in the most 50 Cent way possible. Not with explanation, not with damage control, but with pressure. A comment under his own post sealed the tone. Tell your son watch his mouth before grown men start telling the truth. That line changed everything. Because now it wasn't just a reaction anymore. It was a warning. And the internet understood it instantly. Within minutes, the fallout began behind the scenes. Not publicly, privately, where the real panic always happens. T.I.'s phone reportedly didn't stop ringing. Managers, publicists, legal advisors, all scrambling at the same time. Emergency calls were made. Meetings were pulled together instantly. One insider described it like a full-scale industry fire drill. Contracts were quietly paused. Appearances were reconsidered. A major podcast episode tied to T.I. reportedly disappeared from scheduling without explanation. Nobody wanted to be attached to what might come next. Because everyone could feel it. This wasn't over. It was escalating. And at the center of that escalation was one thing, a rumor that had followed T.I. for years. A rumor he had repeatedly ignored, denied, or outpaced through career reinvention. But now it was back, louder than ever. And this time, it wasn't being whispered. It was being pushed into the spotlight. And 50 Cent didn't stop there. Because while the internet was still trying to digest the first wave, another detail leaked from inside industry circles. He had more. Not just drafts, not just ideas, but a second post already prepared. Something insiders described as worse, deeper, career-ending if released. One executive allegedly said bluntly, if he drops that second post, there's no recovery from it. And that's when fear really started spreading. Because people don't panic of what has been posted. They panic over what hasn't yet. Then came the moment that made everything feel even more real. In a brief appearance that night, 50 Cent smirked at the camera and dropped a line that sent chills through the industry. I ain't done yet. And just like that, the message was clear. This wasn't a one-post reaction. It was a campaign. Meanwhile, inside T.I.'s world, things were reportedly unraveling fast. The pressure wasn't just public, it was internal. Family, management, and close associates all trying to contain something that was already slipping out of control. And King Harris, the spark that started it, had suddenly gone completely silent. The same voice that had been loud, emotional, and unfiltered just hours earlier vanished. Insiders claimed the shift was immediate. One moment he was online, standing firm. The next, he was off camera, overwhelmed, realizing too late that words have weight when the wrong people are listening. Because this time, it wasn't internet backlash. It was consequence. While all of that unfolded, 50 Cent continued moving in silence and snippets, not explaining, not clarifying, just controlling the narrative one piece at a time. Then came another post. A cryptic story, black background, white text. "You ain't scared yet, don't worry, I'm just warming up." That was the moment the internet stopped treating this like entertainment. Because warming up meant what had already happened, wasn't even the real move. And now the contrast became impossible to ignore. T.I. silent. 50 Cent escalating. King Harris disappeared from the conversation entirely. And the industry, watching in real time, powerless to intervene without making it worse. Because one thing everyone understood, even if they wouldn't say it out loud, was simple. 50 Cent doesn't bluff. When he says there's more, there is more. And the most terrifying part wasn't the posts already released. It was what insiders claimed was still waiting. A second piece of information, a deeper reveal, something so sensitive that even mentioning it publicly would shift the entire conversation beyond music, beyond beef, beyond entertainment. Something personal. Something that could pull more than just T.I. into the spotlight. And just as speculation reached its peak, the situation took another turn. A leaked audio clip surfaced online. Anonymous, grainy, damaged enough to raise questions but clear enough to spread instantly. A voice believed to be T.I. speaking in fragments. "I did what I had to do, they gave me a choice." That was all it took. The internet didn't wait. It exploded again. Clips were reposted. Threads were built in minutes. Analysis videos appeared instantly. Everyone trying to decode, interpret, and connect dots that were suddenly spreading faster than they could be confirmed. And just like that, the situation stopped being about one post. It became something much bigger. A collapsing chain of control, silence, reaction, and exposure, all unfolding at once. Because now the real question wasn't what 50 Cent had already revealed. It was what he was still holding back. And whether the industry was ready for it. Because if the first post shook everything, then the next one wasn't expected to just shake it again. It was expected to end it. And then the moment came that pushed this story completely past the point of control. Because it wasn't another post. It wasn't another caption. It was a screen recording. A private live stream of 50 Cent. And what people saw on that clip didn't feel like entertainment anymore. It felt like confirmation that he was fully in control of the situation. He wasn't yelling, he wasn't performing, he wasn't even trying to impress anyone. He was just sitting there laughing. Not loud, not chaotic, but slow, calm, almost satisfied. The kind of laugh that doesn't come from surprise. It comes from knowing something everyone else hasn't realized yet. Then he leaned closer to the camera and dropped 7 words that froze the entire internet. "Y'all don't even know half of it, this just beginning." That line alone detonated everything again. Because up until that moment, people thought the peak had already happened. They thought the leaked document, the reactions, the chaos, that was it. But 50 Cent just made it clear. That was only the start. Within minutes, the industry went into emergency mode. Phones started ringing non-stop. Publicists were drafting statements they weren't even sure they'd ever release. Lawyers were reviewing past conversations, old contracts, anything that could possibly become relevant next. Because when 50 Cent says, "This is just beginning," nobody laughs it off. They prepare. And while the outside world was trying to process the clip, inside T.I.'s camp, panic was already boiling over. Insiders described chaos. TI reportedly trying to trace where the leaked audio came from, who had access, who recorded it, who saved it, who shared it. But the frustration wasn't just confusion, it was disbelief. Because to him, it didn't make sense how something that old, something supposedly contained, suddenly resurfaced at the worst possible moment. And in that confusion, one question kept repeating. Who did this? But the truth, the part nobody wanted to say out loud, was simpler and more terrifying. It didn't matter who leaked it, because 50 Cent didn't need to leak anything. He just needed the timing to be right, and everything else would collapse on its own. While that pressure built, King Harris tried to re-enter the internet. A comeback moment, a quick attempt to reset the narrative. He posted, he spoke, he tried to act unfazed. But the internet wasn't in a forgiving mood anymore. Comments flooded instantly. Bro, stop posting. You made this worse. You don't understand what you started. Sit this one out before your whole family gets exposed. And for the first time, the energy wasn't playful. 50 Cent stayed calm, still posting lightly, still hinting, still controlling timing. And that silence from him between moves, that was what made everything worse. Because in situations like this, noise is predictable. Silence is not. And right now, the silence wasn't peace. It was preparation. And everyone watching knew it. The story wasn't finished. Not even close. It was still building. And whatever came next wasn't going to reset anything. It was going to redefine everything. Zero. From the moment that leaked message hit the internet, everything shifted again. Not slowly, not quietly, instantly. Because now this wasn't just a celebrity feud anymore. It had turned into something bigger, something personal, something dangerous, something nobody could fully control. And the worst part, the industry realized 50 Cent still hadn't even finished. People thought the plea deal post was the final blow. Then they thought the leaked audio was the breaking point. Then they thought T's silence meant it was over. They were wrong. Because what came next showed this was only the surface of something much deeper. Behind the scenes, panic spread faster than the posts themselves. Executives who usually ignore rap beef were suddenly involved. PR teams were rewriting statements every few minutes. Lawyers were being pulled into emergency calls. Everyone was asking the same question. What does 50 have next? And nobody had an answer. Then came the screenshots. Not public posts, private messages circulating inside industry circles. A short, chilling line kept repeating. He forgot I kept the messages. At first, people didn't understand it, but then another message surfaced. 50 has them now. And that's when everything changed again. Because this time, it wasn't speculation. It wasn't a rumor. It was the suggestion of direct evidence, private conversations, hidden exchanges, something that was never meant to be seen outside a small circle. And suddenly, the narrative wasn't about King anymore. It wasn't even about T's old legal history. It became about betrayal. A betrayal so deep it reportedly involved someone T publicly trusted, defended, and built his image around. Someone close enough that exposing the situation wouldn't just damage his career, it would damage his identity. While the internet spiraled, T's camp reportedly went into full damage control. Calls were made non-stop, messages were deleted, old contacts were being reached out to. But there was one problem. The internet was already ahead of them. Once a rumor reaches that level, you don't control it anymore. You just react to it. And 50 Cent, he wasn't reacting at all. He was watching. Calm, silent, calculating. Insiders say that's what made it worse, not what he was saying, but what he wasn't saying. Because every pause felt intentional. Every silence felt like a countdown. Then another twist hit. A former associate from T's past broke silence online with a single word. Betrayal. No explanation, no context, just that word. And that was enough to set everything on fire again. People started connecting dots that may or may not exist. Old interviews resurfaced. Past controversies were re-examined. Every small detail of T's history suddenly looked different under the new spotlight. And through it all, King Harris disappeared from the conversation completely. No more live streams, no more posts, no more defiance. Just silence. The same silence that now felt heavier than everything else combined. Because at this point, everyone understood something uncomfortable. This was no longer just about words online. It was about consequences catching up in real time. And then came the most dangerous part of all, the realization that 50 Cent wasn't done. Not even close. A cryptic post appeared briefly on his story. Black screen, white text. "I haven't even started yet." That single line changed the temperature of the entire situation. Because now it wasn't about what had already been exposed. It was about what was still coming. And according to whispers inside the industry, the next piece wasn't about paperwork, rumors, or old accusations. It was about loyalty. Something personal. Something irreversible. Something that could split reputations permanently. And that's where the fear really started. Because when a story stops being about careers and starts being about trust, nothing survives untouched. Not image, not legacy, not control. And as of now, one thing is clear. The story didn't end. It escalated. And the next movie still hasn't dropped. If you already understand the weight of everything that's unfolded, then you know this isn't just another internet moment anymore. This isn't rap beef, it's not trolling, and it's definitely not 50 Cent being petty. This is something much bigger, a full-scale career-shaking storm, and right now, T is standing directly in the center of it with no shield, no backup, and no clear escape route. All of it sparked from one place, a single comment that crossed a line, and a silence that made everything worse. Because now the situation has turned into something nobody can easily control. And the question that's taking over the internet is simple, but heavy. Should 50 Cent drop the final receipts or walk away? People are split. Some say he's already proven his point and should stop before things go too far. Others believe he hasn't even finished yet, that the real damage hasn't even been shown. And then there's the deeper debate. Did T really betray someone close to him just to protect himself? Should King Harris publicly apologize and take responsibility for how far things escalated? Is T's reputation already beyond repair, or is there still a way back? And most importantly, if 50 Cent has more, should he release it, or keep it locked for the next mistake? Because right now, every opinion, every comment, every reaction online is becoming part of something bigger, a wave of speculation the industry can no longer ignore. But here's the reality nobody can avoid. T hasn't addressed the rumors. King Harris is silent. And 50 Cent, he's still in control of the narrative. Which means this story is not finished. It's loading. And when the next move drops, the entire industry is going to feel it.